2016-6, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Klein?
I'd move to approve ordinance number 2016-006.
Second, Mr. Mundy. Discussion? Ms. Frishy?
Well, we're here tonight and we have a unique opportunity to do what's right. Last year, this ordinance came up and it passed with an 8-2 vote. However, Mr. Lonyo did not want his payment until 2016, which brings us to tonight's vote. I know we have 3 new council members who are not aware anywhere close to being up to speed on this matter, and there was discussion at the previous council meeting that they may choose to abstain. That might be the right thing to do, the best thing to do for them, since they are not fully aware of all the discussion over the last 8 to 10 months. But I wanted to take a few minutes and just recap some of the notes, so if they decide to take a vote one way or another, they have a little information. Mr. Lonyo was not eligible, so there was 8+ months of discussion that ended with a negotiation, a side negotiation for half of what he was owed, or he thought he was owed. First, we must decide if he was entitled to a sick time payment. Mr. Lonyo resigned on 11/18 of 14 while he was on vacation, but he continued to work, I believe, until about the first of the year. During that 8 to 10 months of discussion, there were several ideas on how and why we should pay Mr. Lonyo, but none passed the stink test, as Mr. Harrington said from the beginning it must do. It was clearly stated in Ordinance 2016-62, retirement is defined as being immediately eligible to receive retirement benefits from employer's pension plan. The law director submitted to council his legal opinion, and in that letter he cited the Metzger versus the state case from 1991 with the city and said it is different because the letter said he resigned and not that he retired. He felt this case was about the definition of retirement in his legal opinion. We were then waiting for a letter from the state similar to Officer Wappelhorse, who retired from the force in 2010. That letter did not come in favor of Mr. Lonyo, stating that he was eligible to start collecting benefits, which was what our ordinance read and required. The letter from OP&F was dated 2/19 of 15, clearly showing that Mr. Lonyo was not eligible to immediately receive because the letter told him to reapply 45 days prior to turning 48 years of age. The law director and the administration compared Mr. Lonyo's retirement to a union police officer retirement, which has different rules. The key word there was union. The fire chief position is not protected by the union. We were told that this ordinance was not legal later, and that's referencing the sick pay ordinance. However, it was reviewed under the administration and law director and passed by council in 2013 as being legal. After that discussion, switched to the side negotiations because it could possibly save the city money of a court case. At a recent council meeting this year, we were told that we have a contract and must pass this ordinance. However, it was clarified at that council meeting that we only have a verbal agreement, nothing more. Verbal agreement is not a contract. The negotiation ordinance that's presented tonight is approximately for half of the $65,000 he claimed he was due. If Mr. Lonyo was truly due the $65,000 and you were in his shoes, would you settle for half? With all this being said, last night before going to bed, I saw my oath of office sitting in the kitchen and I thought I'd read it. In that ordinance, I swore to uphold the Constitution and all state and city ordinances, but nowhere in my oath did it give me the right to do side negotiation. Mr. Harrington brought up over the 8+ month discussion that this has to pass the stink test. I will be voting no again tonight. If Mr. Lonyo feels he is in the right, then I fully support him taking the proper channels through the legal system to hash this out because it is not in my oath to side negotiate. For the record, if I honestly was owed that $65,000, I would not settle for half.
Thank you, Ms. Ritchie. Mr. Mundy?
I don't know where to start. I didn't write a speech, by the way. First of all, Ms. Rishi talked about this negotiation. We beat that horse to death. She might as well have said Ron Mundy negotiated with him, because that's what she said in the past. I did not, under any circumstances, negotiate anything with Tom LONYO. That's an absolute untruth. What I did, I went to Tom LONYO, and at the request of two other council members, as I was the chairman of appropriations, and they said, will you ask him what the least that he will take? And he gave me a figure, and I reported it back to the appropriation committee as I was asked to do. And I did. And the amount that he gave was the $32,000 plus.
Mr. Hellman?
I've got a question for Mr. Rasmussen. Does this establish a precedent in the future? And are we going to find ourselves in this predicament again?
Well, it's completely changed now because the term of retirement has been adopted as the retirement definition in the state of Ohio, which is service retirement, with 4 different types of service retirement, of which Tom LONYO took advantage of one type of service retirement. So the problem was the definition of retirement that we previously had, because that would have prevented us from paying any sick time to people who left after 10 years. So, and that's mandated by the state. Okay, so that definition just didn't work. They should have put that definition for anything over and above the 10 years, or not for retirement, and had a different definition for retirement. That's what we tried to do in that committee. We tried to talk about what our requirement is under the state code for the first 10 years, or death after 10 years, of paying 1/4 of 960 hours of accumulated but unused sick leave. The balance, you're free to eliminate it or increase it. You folks increased it a long time ago. This wasn't in 2013. This goes way back, okay? So if you want to put a different standard for what it is after that initial 960, that's what we tried to do. We tried to make it normal retirement, and Mrs. Frischie didn't agree with that. Normal retirement requires that you have both age and service. That's what we tried to do in that committee.
Thank you. Ms. Frischie?
Since we're going to touch base on the sick pay ordinance, originally the sick pay ordinance said that you had to be immediately eligible to collect retirement benefits from your pension. In order to do that, you had to meet the number of years of service and an age requirement depending on what type of service retirement you were taking or disability. Mr. LONYO did not meet that requirement. Had he met that requirement, we never would have been having this discussion for 8 to 10 months, because he would have been paid and we would have moved on. During this whole discussion, when the scenarios kept changing on why we should pay him out, the last one was that we were waiting for a letter from the state of Ohio, from OP&F, that they were expecting to state that he was eligible to receive benefits. That letter did not come. The letter that came, which I have here with me, states that he should reapply 45 days prior to his 48th birthday. So he was not immediately eligible. That's why that got dropped. That's why we went to what I will consider, again, calling side negotiation. And that's why we are making an ordinance for half, because that's what Mr. LONYO told Mr. Monday that he would be willing to accept. And by us accepting that, we are negotiating. Now, I don't disagree with our law director. We have our law director to look to for answers. But we also have a legal system and we have a process. And that process needs to be followed. And we have the money and the funds to be able to follow that legal process with anything that comes to the city. And this should be no different. Finally, the sick pay ordinance an ad hoc committee was formed. When that ad hoc committee was formed, it was myself, Mr. Harrington, and Mr. Schindeldecker. The first committee meeting ended with Mr. Harrington stomping out and not having a discussion. And Mr. Schindeldecker, myself, and Don finished that meeting and didn't get very far, and we weren't able to make a recommendation. The second meeting, Tom and John scheduled when I could not be available and did not make me aware in advance of the meeting. They then made a recommendation to council, which council passed. The difference of that ad hoc was to define what retirement meant. And when we changed that, it says retirement means disability or service retirement under any state or municipal retirement system in the state. That's what was changed.
Any other discussion? Mr. Harrington?
Yeah, I've been mentioned a couple times. I think the word fishy was in there, and that was the initial meeting that we had when it was announced that he had left, and I kind of used my business sense at the time and felt that, but since then, our law director has come with a legal opinion. He is the lawyer for the city of Findlay. I consider him my lawyer as a city councilman, and I'm going to take his recommendation. As to why I stomped out, I've been accused of stomping out, leaving in a huff. It was a meeting that seemed very redundant. It was we were just discussing matters that had been discussed, had been decided, and Ms. Frishy just seemed to be that day intent on bringing those issues up again and again and again. I didn't feel very well at the time. I wasn't very patient at the time. I apologized later for leaving. As to us scheduling a meeting, and there was no clandestine timing on the meeting, so you couldn't be there, Holly. It was set. I'm sorry you couldn't have been there, but it was decided at that time, so I just need to reply to those. I think those were unwarranted criticisms and needed to be addressed.
Any other discussion? Mr. Wobser?
I'm going to, when we get to the vote on this, I'm going to abstain on this vote because I do believe that council did indeed negotiate with Mr. Lonyo to come to this conclusion, and I appreciate what Councilman Monday is saying, that he doesn't feel like it was a negotiation. I tend to disagree with that, with no disrespect, but since I was not part of that, I'm going to abstain from this vote at the time.